you.
Thank you.
All right, so it's a big story, it's a big case, lots of eyes on it. What's likely to happen today?
Today is just a simple postponement. The National Prosecuting Authority and the police have finished their investigation and preparations for the trial. Because they're shifting the case from the Magistrates Court to the High Court for trial, they will serve an indictment on him, which is the name for the charge sheet in the High Court. It has a summary of the facts and a brief summary of the case and a list of witnesses.
So this is the first indication of what the state's case is likely to be.
It's the formal charge sheet. It tells him it's precisely what they're charging him with, and a brief version. And you also see in the press that the defence has also obtained contents of the police investigation docket. So it's all the witness statements, all the forensic reports, blood, forensics, ballistics, has been supplied to the defence so that they can prepare for trial.
All right, so what we know for certain is that Reeva Steenkamp was shot dead. We know that Oscar said he did it. And I'm just wondering what's going to be decided in the courts when the court case actually gets heard.
It's a very interesting case and a very interesting defence. It's what we call putative self-defence. This is when an individual responds with force to what he believes to be a threat or an attack, when in reality there is no threat or attack. So Oscar believed that there was someone in the toilet who posed a threat to him and Reeva, and he fired believing this when in fact there was not. It was his girlfriend Reeva. And so this is what we call an intention defence. He lacked the criminal intent to murder. He believed he was defending himself when in fact there wasn't. And so it's very difficult on both parties. How do you know what's going on inside a man's head? He says, I thought there was an intruder. I didn't intend to kill her. And so this case will turn on the fine details, because we have to deduce or infer Oscar's intention at the time by his conduct. What did he do? Does that tally with what he says his intention was? So the small details will be very, very important.
And I would imagine that the burden of these other two charges starts to paint a picture, and that's probably why they would add these indictments.
I think that's the strategy. They're trying to say that he's gun crazy and doesn't think carefully and is predisposed to violence. I'm not too sure how relevant these charges are to the main count. At the end of the day, the court has to deal with the facts on the day of the offence for which he's charged. And his prior behaviour has a small impact, but in my view, very little relevance.
With whom does the burden of proof lie? Does the prosecution have to prove that he's lying, or does Oscar have to prove that he's telling the truth?
The overall burden of proof is always on the state to prove the charge against him beyond reasonable doubt. However, he has admitted shooting her. And so there is what we call not a full onus, there's an evidentiary burden for him to lay a basis, a platform of evidence in it, as it were, justifying his behaviour and to give context to his belief. Once he's laid that evidentiary burden, there's a duty on the state to negate that or to try and set that aside. But the overall burden is on the state, but there is a duty on him to lay a basis for his defence.
All right. If his story is what is believed by the courts, could he get off?
Well, you must understand that he's been charged with murder. There's a whole lot of hot air about premeditated murder, which simply means that it was a planned act, some pre-planning. But what we call a competent verdict to murder is culpable homicide. This is a lesser offence which falls under the umbrella of the charge of murder. So even if he's acquitted of murder, he has to still address the possibility of a conviction for culpable homicide, which is the negligent killing of a person. And that's a very interesting point of law, because the standard of testing his behaviour for the negligent crime of culpable homicide is, did he behave in a rational way like the reasonable person? And the academic debate is, who is the reasonable person? Is it a white upper-class judge, or is it a disabled para-Olympian who's on his stumps? Do we lower the bar or raise the bar? And so that is what I think the defence strategy is going to be. That if we judge Oscar's behaviour according to the reasonable disabled person who may feel more threatened in the circumstances, then that may assist him in the culpable homicide charge.
And I guess that the level of threat is what's going to be measured, because you have to be in clear and present danger for you to take somebody's life.
Correct, but you must understand that we know that the objective facts that he was not in clear and any danger whatsoever. But this is a mens rea, an intention defense. He's saying, I believed I was, and so I lacked the criminal intention. And so the court's going to have to try and unpack that, looking at all the surrounding circumstances to say whether it believes him on that belief or not.
All right, so it kicks off in March next year, all likelihood. How long do you think a case like this will last for?
Well, I read that there's a witness list of 100 witnesses. Not that they're going to call everybody, but they could. And I think the defense team is going to be a detailed unpacking of every breath and every movement. It's not going to be short. It's going to take a long time.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but certainly a case I'm sure that the whole world is watching. Thanks for your insights this morning, Stephen
Pleasure.
Tuson.
Thank you.
All right, okay, we'll leave it there for the time being. We're going to be crossing to Criselda straight after this break, so stay with us for that.